Hi, my name is Annie, and welcome again to the Walking Word, where we go through the Holy Bible in a year as part of discipling. And we are in the second book of Kings, chapter 2, where we're going to encounter Elisha succeeding Elijah, Elisha succeeding Elijah, depending on which side of the world you come from. But remember, the book of Kings is a book about leadership. It is a book about the rise and fall of the kingdoms of Israel and Judah. It is a book about when leadership submits to God, how that looks like, and when it's not submitted to God, how it looks like. And we see this via the different kings and the monarchy of Israel. So it's about the rise and fall of the Israelite monarchy. Okay. 2 Kings chapter 2. When the Lord was about to take Elijah up to heaven in a whirlwind, people say he went up with a chariot of fire. No. He was just followed by a chariot. He was taken up by a wind. But anyway, besides the point, he's one of the few guys who were assumed into heaven. We also know that Enoch was assumed into heaven. And of course, Deuterocanonical books also reveal that Mary was also assumed into heaven. But let's watch this. When the Lord was about to take Elijah up to heaven in a whirlwind, he and Elisha were on their way from Gilgal. Stay here, please, Elijah said to Elisha. The Lord has sent me to Bethel. Remember, Bethel, house of God. Yeah, house of God. As the Lord lives, and as you yourself live, Elisha replied, I will not leave you. So this is true discipleship. When Elijah is like, by the I'm not leaving this place. I am following you. Whatever the Lord wants me to learn through you, I am here to stay. Okay, so as surely as the Lord lives and you yourself, Elisha replied, I will not leave you. So they went down to Bethel together, where the guild prophets went out to Elisha and asked him, do you know that the Lord will take your master from over you today? Yes, I know it, he replied. Keep still. So these are his fellow prophets encouraging him. And if you can remember, where are these prophets from? Remember, there was a time when Elijah was complaining to God, and he's like, "Oh, I am the only prophet who is left," and things like that. And God tells Elisha, like, chill out. There are 7 others who haven't bowed down to Baal. Can you relax? So we can see now, after the death of Ahab and all these prophets that were, these kings that were killing prophets, we can see the prophets now coming out. And they're all under the stewardship of Elijah. And I think that's, to be honest, this is the first school of prophets we see, that Elijah is leading a clique of prophets. Because it says, where the guild of prophets. Guild. So it's like, the way we normally say women's guild. Those women's groups in churches. But it's a guild of prophets. So it's like a school of prophets. Yeah. But now Elisha is just scared of leaving Elijah's presence, because he's already felt it in the spirit that the Lord, and all these prophets, because they interact with God often, now they already know. So something is about to happen, and it has something to do with our leader being taken away by God. So it's already in the air. Then Elijah said to him, stay here, please, Elisha, for the Lord has sent me on to Jericho. As the Lord lives and as you yourself live, Elisha replied, I will not leave you. They went on to Jericho, where guild prophets approached Elisha and asked him, do you not know that the Lord will take your master from over you today? Yes, I know it, he replied, but keep still. So Elisha is like, I know, but I have to keep still. Keep still so that you may know I'm good. Elijah said to Elisha, please stay here. The Lord has sent me to Jordan. As the Lord lives and as surely as you live, Elisha replied, I will still not leave you. And so the two went on together. 50 of the guild prophets followed. And when the two stopped at the Jordan, stood facing them at a distance, Elijah took his mantle. Remember, a mantle is like that big bubu. I don't know, in Africa, many African countries call it bubu, but it's basically what men, it's like a big coat, a long coat. I don't know. Let's call it a trench coat of them days. He would take this mantle. It was a sign of leadership, and rolled it up and stuck it and struck the water. And he divided the water, and both crossed over the ground. Again, we see that miracle that God allowed Moses to do. Elijah is also walking in that prophetic power. Then, what happens? Verse 9, when they had crossed over, Elijah said to Elisha, ask whatever I may do for you before I am taken from you. Elisha answered, may I receive a double portion of your spirit. So that this is how we know, because later on in scripture, we'll see there was no greater man. Jesus says that there's no any person born of a woman who was greater than John the Baptist. And it says the spirit of Elijah was also upon him. So we know names are not only, are just not an identifier. It's just not a noun. It's also a spirit. Yeah. This is how we know people and spirits are transferable. Spirits are transferable. You have asked something that is not easy. Now, this is what Elijah is replying. Still, if you see me taken up from you, your wish will be granted, otherwise not. That means if you, in the realm, you're already working in the capacity that if you see what God is about to do, because what happens in the spiritual realm, not everybody is able to see. But if you see it, then for sure you'll be able to receive it. So for some of the spiritual gifts we ask for and some of the things we ask for God, there has to be a level of what we see for some of these things to come down. Okay. And where are we? Otherwise, if you don't see, Elijah's like, otherwise, if you don't see what God is about to do, then chances are you won't receive it. Yeah. As they walked on conversing, remember they're walking on this dry land across the Jordan. Man, God is so... as they walked on conversing, a flaming chariot and flaming horses came between them. Basically separation. And Elijah went up to heaven in a whirlwind, not in a chariot. The chariot was just accompanying him. But I guess it's the chariot that's creating this whirlwind and he's carried up. When Elisha saw it happen, he cried out, my father, Israel's chariots and drivers. But when he could no longer see him, Elisha gripped his own garment and tore it into two. So he's seeing him going up, but after he goes, he doesn't see him anymore. And he's like, I think in anguish Then he picked up Elijah's mantle, which had fallen from him, and went back and stood at the bank of the Jordan. Wielding the mantle, which had been left from Elijah, he struck the water in his turn and said, where is the Lord, the God of Elijah? When Elisha struck the water, it divided and he crossed. So now that prophetic power sat on him as well. The guild prophets in Jericho, who were on the other side, saw him and said, the spirit of Elijah rests upon Elisha. They went to meet him, bowing to the ground before him. Among your servants are 50 brave men, they said. Let them go in search of your master. Perhaps the spirit of the Lord has carried him away to some mountain or some valley. Do not send them, he answered. However, they kept urging him until he was embarrassed and said, okay. Send them. So they went, 50 men, and searched for 3 days without finding him. Interesting. 3 days. Jesus, you shall search. But the man you're looking for has already conquered everything. When they returned to Elisha in Jericho, where he was staying, he said to them, did I not tell you not to go? Let's finish off verse 19 to 25 in the next one.